conversation focused on social mission. I think that's the exciting thing. If we can jump on the bandwagon of Macron, which I think is exciting, and start to ask all the big companies to think about social impact, social mission, to start engaging with the stakeholders, I think that's exciting. So I think that's the dream, that we start to get politicians engaged, we start to get media engaged, and we start the conversation on social impact.
We're in Parliament. That's not an accident. That hasn't happened by coincidence. We're here because for too long there's been a business world and a political world, and they've seen things slightly differently. They've had different interests. They now have a shared understanding that it is really important to bring a proper sense of fairness into business, that business needs to do things more fairly, be seen to be more fair, to have more of a social impact, because only that way can we deliver continued social consent, social support for a good, vibrant, profitable business sector.
Perhaps what we need is an alternative way of measuring social impact, of kind of ingraining that into business culture, so that big companies, much in the same way that they report gender pay gaps, think about reporting instead their social impact and get measured on a series of metrics, which I think could make a real difference to the way that investors look at business and to the way they're run, which ultimately is the aim.
So I think that Philip's really onto something. I think it's an idea whose time is really coming. And I think what would be really important, what we ended up by saying, was that you could do this. You could set up a kind of matrix which looked at what businesses are doing in this area, maybe took in some of the new social mobility pledge, which is around apprentices and open recruitment and those kind of things. So you could take the social mobility pledge, you could look at what Philip's doing about no one earns more than 20 times anywhere else. So you could use those as the beginning bit, and then you could really start rating companies on how ethically they operate.
When I worked for the CBI, one of my mantras was that nobody was in business. They were in transport, telecoms, pharmaceutical or whatever. It's difficult to generalize, but what Philip described was an important principle, that all the people should feel engaged in their work and should feel a degree of control, an ability to contribute and to decide. And that, again, like financial management, requires a degree of empathy and discipline by management, because in the end, the human capital is still the main asset of most businesses.
We're talking right now in the middle of the AGM season, right? So you've got shareholders up and down the country, big and small, starting to ask quite awkward questions about exactly what the businesses they invest in are up to, whether that's because they're not making profits, whether it's perhaps they're being exposed for not quite doing the right thing or having the wrong kind of culture. The pressure is coming from investors now, and they definitely want to see change. At the same time, we've got workers looking at things in a different way. We've got the sense of intergenerational unfairness, and all of those are kind of drivers, societal drivers, which could see perhaps cultural change in business. I think in many ways, business is ready for this debate.
I'm really interested in Philip's approach to thinking not only how business is structured, but how business is structured can change what business can do. So that idea that a business well structured that allows its stakeholders, in the widest sense of that word, to have impact over decision making, can suddenly become a business that does really good things for us as a society and to become more sustainable and to make all of those buying decisions for us as consumers easier, because then we have to stop choosing between good companies and bad companies and can just choose between good companies and good companies.
After the crisis of 2008, a lot of think tanks have been created and to understand what was happening. The idea was we decided to say that it was a governance problem. By saying so, America have been launching some new product to fight against governance problem, but by limiting this product to save the head of the CEOs that were in trouble at the time. We have decided to take a different scope, and imagining that there was a lack of a word in our social world was the cooperation, a collective action by people to do something that ordinary citizens would expect. Then we decided to create something which was pragmatic, a new kind of company, and we called it Purpose Company, Société à Mission, Entreprise à Mission.
There's some big enterprise in France, but I think there is a danger. There's some good stuff in here. You know, if you take Welsh Water as mentioned, they're a social business from day one. They've been that social business. I think there are some good examples, but we don't probably highlight examples. I think in France, if you just look at the way pension funds invest their money, there is a requirement for them to actually invest a percentage of it in socially responsible funds, etc. So, how do you drive change? You can drive change at all sorts of levels. You can drive change on investments. So one of the things in Big Issue, we've got in partnership with Columbia Threadneedle, we have a social bond fund, which is positively screened. So it's top quartile performer for Columbia. We advise on it, but actually that is changing the way that people can choose to invest. That will only take bonds out in organisations that are creating health and well-being outputs, employment, housing. So actually we can change the way, but we need to turn the dial, not just at that level, but all the way up.
For me, the real value of this project is having somebody who runs a company, big company, makes money, lots of money, really knows what he's talking about, has skin in the game, profits on the line, saying this is the way to do business and do business better. So that, having someone who runs a company of that scale and size, providing this example, that's really positive. And I think it's one of those things, you see somebody else doing it, you might think, oh yeah, I can do that too. So ultimately that is, I think more companies should be doing a Philip Ullman, as it were, coming out and saying, yes, we are about more than the bottom line, we are about social impact as well. And as you get role models, exemplars of those values, more people will start to do it.
No, I think people were engaged. I think we got genuine questions, challenges. So, and I think it was an engaged debate. I think it's very, very happy with the event. It felt good. I think it ended too early.
There's something called Glover's principle, which is that the impact is the sum total of every small action. It doesn't matter how small your action is, it will contribute to the overall impact. So even if all you can do is start small, start there.